Hi everybody, I'm Carl and welcome to Knack 3D Designs. In this installment we're going to pre-assemble and wire our Hotend carriage. So let's get started. Alright, in this segment we're going to go ahead and pre-assemble our Hotend carriage so we can get all of our wiring set up nice and neat. To do this you're going to need a pair of 24 volt blower fans. These are the ones used on the Creality printers. You're going to need a micro switch. You are going to need 2 metric 3x8s, 2 metric 3x10s, 2 metric 3x12s, 2 metric 3x35s plus the metric 3 washers, and 6 metric 2x12mm screws. We're going to need our Slice Engineering Hotend, 50 watt heater cartridge, the high temp thermistor, all from Slice Engineering, E3D adapter that's custom drilled by Printed Solid to mount straight on top of the Mosquito Hotend. That way our mount is designed to work with either an E3D V6 or Mosquito, though I do prefer the Mosquito, and I'll show you for some obvious reasons why. The 24 volt fan that comes with the Mosquito. We'll need our Hotend carriage, our E3D or Mosquito clamp and fan mount, the Hotend mount, the wiring cover, and our cooling fan ducts. So real quick, the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is assemble our cooling fans. Pretty simple. Fan duct slides. Fan duct slides into the fan. We're going to want to aim it towards the front of the assembly. Now, as you can see, that screw sticks out just a little bit past. You can either go ahead and order some metric 2x10mm so that it doesn't stick out past, or I didn't want to keep ordering more. I'm just going to go ahead and lop that little bit off with my Dremel, and then we'll do the same for this side over here. Okay, so I've trimmed my 2 screws down. They're now approximately 10mm long. And I'm going to put them here in that position. Now, some of you may have noticed there is a 4th hole here. I didn't do anything with it. There's no heat set that goes in it. You could go ahead and put a thread cutting screw in there if you wanted to. I put it there originally for that purpose and discovered I really didn't need it. So now we've got the fans and the fan ducts assembled to the Hotend clamp. The wiring will wrap around top like this, and we will eventually splice these together and into one plug. For now, we're going to leave it there. Set that aside. Next thing we're going to go ahead and do is assemble our E3D mount onto our Mosquito Hotend. You take out those 2 there. And E3D or Mosquito is nice enough to send you all the wrenches you'll need. Should be this one. Now the tricky part is getting this through these 2 holes here. And you can usually just spin this on to start it. Go ahead and drop this other one in. just set these fairly snug in place, and I'll tell you why or show you why in just a second here. Now yes, you could go ahead and take these two screws out, pull the whole hot end apart, mount this together and put it back. But in the end, I think it's quicker and easier, and to be honest, this seems to be some very precision engineering. I prefer not to take it apart if I don't have to. Okay, so now I can still move around just a little bit. I recommend before you tighten this down, you go ahead and insert a piece of PTFE and a piece of filament. All the way through, so you are lining up that tube with your PTFE tube as accurately as you can. It's a very tight tolerance. The less likely you have for this to snag on the way in, the better. Runs past the junction point nice and smooth. Make sure these are nice and tight now. There we go. Tight and moving smoothly in and out of the hot end. Next thing we will need to do is insert our heater cartridge and thermistor. And we're supposed to use their Slice Engineering boron nitrate thermal paste. Sure I get a good bond between everything here. I'd rather wipe off excess than not have enough. So I've got both the heater cartridge and the thermistor in place. Go ahead and put the locking screw back in. Now everything's going to pivot so it dries. Now I want my wires to go back toward the back, so I'm going to very carefully pin this over. Taking that to the back, like so. I'll put my cap back on this before I make more mess. Okay, so now I've washed all the paste off my fingers. Next thing we need to do is start laying out our wiring. To do that, we really need to have our hot end carriage assembled. So, for the sake of directions, we're going to call this the front and the side with the threaded end the back. This is the front of our hot end mount. It goes to the front of that. The two 10mm metric 3 screws go at the front. Now you could go ahead and put your two 12mm ones in. They are designed to go into where they would be flush, and then later on I realized I really needed to make a cover to keep all the wiring from rubbing against the belt. All put together. That slides back like this, and then this bolts up and hides your wiring. Now next thing we need to do, we need to go ahead and thread our micro switch to mount into here. My metric 3 tap. Alright, so we tap both those holes. We need to take one of our three JST connectors we will need for this. So usually what I end up doing is I feed the wire through. For servicing this, it kind of sucks. I don't want a ton of extra wiring. We know where it needs to be. It needs to be in here. Want to have enough room to be able to pull it out and service it later. Make it where it pulls down to like here for a plug. We could make it go all the way down in here and hide the plug inside, but that's going to get in the way later. I mean, imagine if I've done it before where you can push really hard on this and you can make it pull through, but I don't like messing with it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut it about right here. Now we're going to go ahead and solder this up as a normally closed. There's your C for common, NO for normally open, NC for normally closed. Just going to fold that center pin down because we're not going to use it. We're going to solder to these two outer pins. Now I'm going to go ahead and tin both of these wires to make it easier to attach to the switch. Alright, now we'll slide this into the carriage, and this is where we'll use those two metric 3x8mm screws. So there's that switch, or that connector there. Now before we start messing around with having a hot end in our way, I figured the next thing we can do is go ahead and put our hot end clamp in place with our fans and figure out our wiring for them and get them spliced through. I'm going to go ahead and put the two 35mm screws and washers in place and snug it in there. For the sake of making it less trouble than it needs to be, I'm just going to go ahead and cut off the majority of this, leaving enough to work with at the moment. As I said, these two wires will come across here like this, and come back here. Now I don't like the look of all these stray wires, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut myself some heat shrink. As you may have guessed, I've got rolls and rolls of this stuff. I want to give it a nice piece of heat shrink to roll in, at least all the way back here out of sight, so I want heat shrink that long. And yes, you should probably use a heat gun for this. For the sake of time and noise, I'm just going to use my lighter. And nice little trick is if you position it while the heat shrink is still hot, it will kind of hold a shape. Now we've got it tucked nice and neat around the edge of the fan. And I'm just going to put a short little piece right here on the end of there. Now we want to splice these together, but we want to make sure we leave ourselves enough room on the Y that we can get it around the hot end. If we go too tight, you won't be able to pull it around and past. I made the mistake the first time as I pulled it nice and tight, so I'm just going to give it a nice easy V. I'll cut them off up here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and tin those together. Now we know this is going to come into here. The cover is going to go over it. Put it together like that. Now we just need to bring our plug to a point where we can either tuck it down here or bring it up here. And we really don't want to put a lot of stuff in here because, well, it'll disrupt airflow. This really doesn't need to be very long. We have all these wires coming down in through here. Cut it about right there. Alright, and so I am 99% sure that the blue wire is negative and the yellow wire is positive, but just to be sure I went and grabbed the 9-volt battery. There you can all see the fan. I'm going to attach the blue to negative, the yellow to positive. Fan does spin amazingly since it's a 24-volt fan, but it does the trick. We know we've got it the right direction. Remind me to go put this back in my smoke detector. Now we're going to go ahead and cut a few pieces of heat shrink. Right. I've made our fan connection, which can fit up nice through here. Like so. To connect to all the wires that are coming down in. Now we need to go ahead and take this off, mount our hot end in place, and set up those connections. Well, I did say I was going to show you why I like this hot end better. See how this threading for the nozzle is set further to the back side of the heat break? This allows us to get the nozzle much closer to the bed without worry of this, not heat break, but heat block touching the belt. As you can see, this comes up almost flush on the front, so you know it's down tight. Now we've got to make these connections here. Now these are already part on here, so that's going to come up through here like this. It's going to be here, so when you get your other ends that come with it, we will splice these ends onto our wiring harness when it comes down in. The only other one we really have left to custom fit at the moment is for our fan, which we still need to mount. And with all cooling fans, it goes with the sticker towards the hot end, where we want this wire to run down this top corner here. So now we'll feed it up through here. untangle it from the hot-end wiring so it comes up nice and neat like that. Last I checked, unfortunately, this will not mount to the JST connectors I have. I haven't found the right connector to put on there yet. Anybody happens to know what the right connector is so I don't have to cut this off and rewire it, please put a message in the comments and tell me so for the future I can order the right connectors to plug onto this. But in the meantime, we need to splice on a new connector. And for the sake of neatness, I want to try and get it a little closer down here to the bottom so all of our connectors are not on the same spot. Now we just need to feed that back down through. We have all of our connections run through there nice and neat. The only one that should be down in here will be the one for the thermistor. Only because, and I don't understand why, they always put a long connection on a heater cartridge, but a short connection on a thermistor. Give me a connection just as long. And honestly, I think the heater one's a little too long. Give me something in the middle, you know. But hey, that's my preference. Now, the other thing I will suggest you do, just so you don't get them all confused later, is put all your matching connectors on these. And for ease, I'm going to pull this one back out. Because all these are the same style connector, right? But you don't want to get them confused. So when you go to pair all these up, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply some paint to both sides of the connector so that once it dries and sets up, when I go to do these connections later on, they will be paired up appropriately. The only thing left to be installed on here, which we have the two remaining 12mm screws, would be to put the cover on. But for now, I'm going to leave it off while the paint's drying. That's what these two screws go to. And now all we need to do is finish assembling the printer frame and run our wiring through it and connect all this together. Alright, so that wraps up today's episode. Now remember, if you like what I'm doing here, subscribe to the channel. Ring that bell for updates. If you'd like to help support the channel, there is the Printed Solid affiliate link, an Amazon wish list, and a PayPal me link all in the description below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.